This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Today, we're going to talk to an entrepreneur that started out in the fashion industry, interested in sustainability in a world of disposable everything.
His first company was called Modrobes, and now he's getting ready to launch another he calls Haladay.
He is a creative Canadian serial entrepreneur, and his name is Stephen Debus. Stephen, welcome to Believe in People.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we're thrilled. And okay, so I'm going to start with this. Dangerous this may be. Here's an observation. You live like a samurai warrior. In fact, I think you created, and I think I saw that at the head of the Zoom call, the hero formula. And it's more really about finding your purpose. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean like not taking the path expected. So I know you're an entrepreneur, and yet that doesn't necessarily make it easier, probably harder. But how did you crack that open for yourself, your own life? How did you find that for you?
So for me, it was my first big business out of school when I was younger, in my 20s, was a clothing company, Modrobes, in Canada. And it became, I'd been working, and I was like a good artist and a designer, and I'd been doing clothing stuff since I was like 12 years old. And so once I graduated from business school, I started Modrobes, and it became very successful. Like within 5 years, I was a millionaire. I wasn't even 30. I wrote myself a check for $1 million, cars, houses, the whole deal. And I kind of like, it was my dream as a kid. And when I got there, I was just like extremely disappointed because I didn't feel any different. The people around me were not the like glorified humans that I had dreamed that I would be around and surrounded by. They were actually worse, greedy, like trying to take me down, like lawyers. And like, it was just I just was really, really disappointed. And I was very naive about it. And so I really didn't like it. And I thought, if this is it, like, I don't want to be part of this because I want something better. So that sort of started me on this path of like, what do I really want to do? Because when I was a kid, I wanted to design clothing and design shoes and have this cool thing. And Nike was my inspiration. When shoes went from, white and black to these colorful, like really cool checked kind of running shoes, I was inspired for the whole sportswear thing. And it was just like, and I was in love with that whole kind of sportswear realm and doing stuff that was really fun and colorful and stuff like that. So once I got that out of my system, I'm like, what else is there? Because this isn't fulfilling at all. And so that kind of put me on this sort of like 20-year journey of trying to figure out like what I really wanted and what would make me happy and what was my purpose in life. So in the interim, I mean, my son was there and I got divorced and dropped the company and moved on. And I really just wanted to figure out, who I was really. And so that was this journey of figuring that out. And over the past 20 years, the hero formula is like the code that I sort of wanted to crack for myself and for my son as well. And a way to sort of give you your path and lay it out for you, which is essentially telling you who you are deeply and what you want, and then getting you to go for it. So that's really what the hero formula is. And then once I had that opportunity to do it, once I was like, okay, my son is good, he's going to be on his man years. I'm going to boot him out of the house and get him going on that. And I was like, one of the things that I discovered in creating the hero formula was that my core is adventure. I want adventure and I want freedom. So, and then Baja just came up as this like cowboy country kind of relatively, not really discovered, but just a really great opportunity to go off grid, live on the beach, to a certain extent, explore a whole new way to live because I've become very sick of North America and our style of living in the consumerism and sort of the lack of meaning and that sort of thing. And so this just gave me the opportunity to like get my adventure, get my freedom, and really, really finish out the hero formula and live it and see if it gets me what I want. And I can say so far that it's batting like 85 to 90%. Like
Wow.
this is amazing challenges. And it's as simple as like, I didn't know how to fix a toilet. And so I built my own outdoor toilet and shower. And now I know how to build one and fix it and maintain it. And it's actually really easy to do. Like this is the fun of being off grid. And then I built my own solar power system so I could power up my trailer because I live in a trailer and there's just my neighbors are donkeys and cows and camels and goats. And it's just a different way to live and it challenges me in a whole different way. And I really, really like it. And I'm on the land and it feels good. And I'm in the ocean and it feels amazing. So that's the long form.
So
take me.
But that means that doesn't mean that you stopped being an entrepreneur and stopped creating because you're about to launch your next project.
Exactly. The sort of the creative part of me just never sleeps. And I think I've realized that like, I just love solving creative problems and they always come up in life. So for me, it's like, the hero formula is what was the next level because it's like, I want to solve this problem for myself. And then the problem that I see out there. And first of all, it's with men and young men. And I'm a member of this group called the Arc of Brotherhood, which is basically a group of men. It's about building better men because what's happened through my generation and part of what like troubled me and threw me off of my path was that we don't have good structure. We don't have good systems to create really good people in the sort of the sense that you're honest, you have integrity, you're responsible, you're accountable. That we just don't have good examples of that in our culture. And I think that's a big part of why our culture is a mess right now. And we're wondering, is this whole society going to collapse? And I think a lot of that is because people don't know how to figure out their path. They don't have good examples of what to do in life. And greed and money is taken over as like where there was, God and family and community before. And it's like greed and individualism. And I think that's been a real shift. And it also, it ruined 20 years of my life because I was infected by that. And I wanted to build something that was good for me, that was good for my son, and that I could give to other people so that they could potentially find a better way to live their life that makes them happier, makes them more fulfilled, and gives them meaning.
So, hey, Stephen, so 2 questions. Who inspires you? And second, what is the first step to the hero formula? The first thing somebody needs to do?
Okay. So the first one is, and this is actually part of the hero formula. Like I have 3 heroes. And one of them's on my shirt, which is Carl Jung. And it's mainly because of what his understanding of psychology and shadow work and your blind spots and really understanding like who you are and getting into the uncomfortable part of the stuff about you that you just don't like or that has been shamed since you were a kid. So the psychology of that, very interesting to me. Second one is Friedrich Nietzsche, because he's like the birth of like the awakening of becoming who you are. Like my theory is he like kind of created modern psychology because of just his insights and how out there he was. And the third one is Jordan Peterson, because I'm Canadian, he's Canadian, and he takes both of those guys and gives it a modern context. And for me, when Jordan Peterson first came out and first started doing his rounds and speaking in Canada, I went to see him a bunch of times, and I was absolutely 100% inspired because of his personal responsibility and the idea of like something as simple as like his theory of like make your bed, and metaphorically it's like, or clean your room. And so metaphorically for me, that was like, oh, this is a wake up call. I need to get out of this sort of like this infected thing about like, oh, humans are a virus. We've ruined the planet. The whole environmental things. We're destroying the planet for ourselves. And it sort of started to make me look inside and go, no, I need to take care of myself, be responsible. And then that will come out into the community, into the world. And that's what's going to make the world a better place. Not complaining, pretending you're a victim, or just doing nothing and going down the sort of nihilist, like it's all over, we can't do anything about it. This infection that I'd gotten, and I blame the media, but that's the place where I was. So those are my three heroes that inspire me. And the second question, I can't remember.
Is what the first part of the hero formula?
So the first part of the hero formula is understanding where you are currently in your life and being able to map it out. And it's 5 areas. It's your financial independence, I call it, your mind health, your body health, your family and your relationships, and then like your purpose in life, or you can call it like your soul, or sort of your esoteric kind of practices, all of those 3 in one. So it's understanding those 5 areas and realizing that, if there's a problem in any one of those 5 areas, then this is what you have to look at to get your life on a better path. It's really breaking down your life into these sections so you can understand it better. And then you can start to figure out, where you're failing or where you're just not being your best, and where you need to or want to work on it. So that's the real starting point. And the other part of that I'll add is that there's a system to help you find what you value. And as in the hero formula, your values are like your rudder for a ship. Like if you don't understand your values, you don't know where you're going. And for me, that's what happened when I got to a certain point in my life and I was very successful, is I lost my rudder. I was like, this was what I wanted to get. And after that, I was aimless. I was like, okay, what do I do now? And I didn't understand that the way that I acted was like core to who I was. And if I understood that, I would just look at my values and go, oh, this is obviously what I have to do now. And I could match my decisions in life against my values, and I would find the right path for me. But I didn't, in fact. I matched them against my values, and that's what took me down the wrong path. And I'll say the easy one is greed took me down the wrong path.
Right.
When I got up into a certain level of business, I got surrounded by people who were like, grow, 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 grow. And that's not what I wanted intrinsically. And that made me really bitter and disillusioned with what I was doing with my company at the time. And that made me like literally shelve it and dump it and walk away from the industry, because I was so angry and so bitter about the environment what I was in. And it was much different from where I started, which was the adventure and the freedom, and for doing something that people found real value in.
Well, I can't let this conversation end without a question about Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson has certainly changed, or at least changed in the mind's eye of many in the public.
Yes.
I read his first book as well, where he's telling young men to be responsible and look after themselves and comport themselves in a sort of responsible way. But a lot of people look at him now as if he's some kind of a crank on the sidelines, and I don't know where his persona came off the rails. I know that people have sort of tried to cancel him now, but I guess what I've got to ask you, and that is that are you still supportive of his initial statements about you've got to grow up?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And that's actually something I wrestled with for a long time. And I think the answer is, first of all, yes, 100%. Do I agree with some of the nasty comments he's made on Twitter or whatever about certain people? Probably not. But his his core message is amazing and it's great. And because it advocates for personal responsibility. And I will say that I just watched yesterday, he has formed this group called ARC to offset this other group called WEF. And the ARC group is the sort of like the Association for Responsible Citizenship. And really he advocates at the basic is personal responsibility. And so what I will say is that part of the problem that we have in our society is that we expect people to be gods. No one can make a mistake or we completely cancel them.
Yeah.
And we're humans, like every single human makes mistakes. And for Jordan Peterson, yeah, he says off-color things. He says stuff that people disagree with. But essentially, I think his message is amazing and it empowers people to be better in their life. And the reason that I think that people hate him for it is, one, he disagrees with a lot of what they call this sort of the leftist mentality, but a lot of it is victimhood mentality. Yeah. And the thing that victims hate the most is if you take away their victimhood and you force them to be responsible for themselves. And that's what I love about him, is that he's like, no, you are responsible for yourself regardless of what's happening in your environment. And I think that's why people want to cancel him, is because they absolutely psychologically refuse to get out of that victimhood mentality. And for me, it's a miserable path. And I've seen it and I've kind of been on that. And I'm like, I have no interest in that. Yeah. So that's one part about it. And the other part, and I address this in the hero formula, is that as humans, we have to have real life heroes. And we have to understand that those real life heroes will not agree with us 100% on everything. And that's the beauty of humans, is we all have different opinions, but we have to find this common ground to say, I agree with you on this part, and I don't agree with you on this part, and that's okay. I'm going to take the good from you and use that for my life. And I don't necessarily have to agree with this part of it. And that's fine, because you're a different person and you're a different human. And I think that used to be okay for us in our liberal society to be able to, and I went to school and I took political science and I learned how to debate. And that's what they taught us in debate, is it's like you have these debates and you talk about these issues. And at the end of the day, you shake hands and you say, oh, I see where you're coming from in this. And I was coming from this here, but we're all good. It's all to make a better society. And if you reveal these ideas, no matter how uncomfortable they make you at the time, it's a good way for you to explore them and see maybe that's saying something about yourself. And for me, and this is why I love Carl Jung, is that it's like, if stuff someone says really, really makes you angry, you need to ask yourself why. Why does this trigger you so much? It's probably something inside you that you either dislike about yourself or that you can't really wrestle with right now. And your ultimate goal is to figure that out within yourself so that you'll become a better person and a more whole person. And this is what's great about debate. This is what's great about arguing. And this is what's great about ideas that make you go insane, is it's like, okay, why am I going insane? It's just an idea. It's just a statement. It's just an argument. Why does this have to affect me so much that I want to cancel another human?
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And Stephen, so why are we so lousy at taking responsibility for ourselves and playing that kind of blame game on others in society?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The only thing that I can point to, and there's probably a whole bunch of reasons, is that, like, again, when I went to school, we were trained to understand what the volley of ideas was, and that we all have different ideas and that we can debate them, but they don't have to affect us personally, is that they're just ideas in the whole spectrum of ideas. And we were trained to respect other people as humans, and that we're all on the same side, but they just have different ideas. And I think that mentality is not there anymore. I think there's this idea that ideas or words are violence when they're not. Like, physical violence is physical violence. It hurts you. The emotional violence that people seem to think they get from words is literally their choice, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, to make themselves feel violated or like harmed, but you can choose not to be harmed just as soon as you can choose to be harmed and see it as just an idea. And that's a personal choice. That's not someone putting that on you. And I think that, that's what I've learned. And I think that we no longer teach kids and modern adults that. I think that we're coddled. As Jonathan Haidt was a great, The Coddling of the American Mind was another great book that I read. So I read a lot of books about this as well. I'm trying to inform myself of what's going on in society so that I could, help my son grow up and have a much more balanced perspective of life. So I hope that answers your question. This is kind of what I think, is that we haven't been taught. We're not teaching our kids anymore to be able to deal with conflict and to deal with discomfort and to deal with other people's ideas. We have a coddled younger generation.
You mentioned the media earlier.
I knew you were going to say this.
And as someone who spent his whole life in the media, I'd be interested in finding out what you think about the fact that everything is so polarized now. There is no middle ground. And I'm not pointing my finger at the media. I'm just saying that in order to get eyeballs, you have to have this sort of confrontation taking place. There is no gray area or room for debate. You're either on one side, and if you're on that side, then you have to hate the other side. And people do use words as weapons or as violent. Verbalizing "lock her up" is a good one. All sorts of things like that are taking place now. And so, first of all, explain why you think this is coming from the media. And second of all, isn't it really sort of counterproductive?
Yeah, so the first question, great question as well. And my context when I say that I blame the media is, so my parents were just not around at all when I was a kid, and I was raised by television. Mm-hmm. And so as I grew up, the media was like my parents. So in the 70s and 80s, there was a certain type of media that came out. There was lots of good, there was lots of good heroic stories. There was lots of stories about people overcoming things. And there was a whole, I grew up with Tom Cruise's Cocktail and Tom Cruise's, whatever that one where he had the Porsche or whatever. I can't remember the name of the movie anymore. And there were these heroic stories that you could latch onto. And for me, the story of Nike and that whole realm, and the story of Patagonia, and the story of all these like fashion companies or sportswear companies were like heroic stories of people overcoming stuff and creating these amazing things that were good for people. And so when I say I blame the media, I almost mean it personally, is that I looked to the media as to be a guiding sort of information for me to live a better life. And when it changed in this whole, if I really have to blame anyone, it's Al Gore for his movie about we're all going to die and we're all going to the environment. And so that shifted me. And then things like The Matrix or Fight Club, all of these movies and everything that really informed me, that talked about humans as viruses and all this stuff. For me personally, it made me think of our society as wrong, as bad, as consumerism as bad, as me building a company as a bad human because I'm adding more garbage to the planet. This whole mentality of we're wrong as a society and all that stuff. And that I think has actually grown. It's like this colonizing, misogynist, patriarchal, all of these things that are super, super negative about the idea of, building something and creating and trying to move forward and doing your best and not, being dragged down by the past, but trying to make things better. That's what I mean by the media. And I don't blame the media as their intent to harm. I see it as this sort of this kind of swarm effect that way. So that's why when I blame the media, it's a personal blame, because I'm bitter that I got manipulated by a certain type of media that led me in a way that I wasn't happy with my life. The second part you're saying is, yeah, absolutely, that the media is a complete crazy world now where there's lots of division, and we have an attention economy where negativity and explosive headlines and things like that really gain. It's car crash mentality. They really get people's attention, and that's what gets clicks, and that's what gets money. And so that realm definitely is there as well. And I don't blame the media for that, because they didn't create it. It's what's happened to our media and to our economy, is it's based on getting attention, and that attention is this polarizing aspect. It gets the most amount of attention.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question at all?
Well, it certainly does. And, each time you log on in the morning, when you pull up the web page, the main web page that you're on, whether or not it's, Edge or Chrome or what have you, you are constantly bombarded with, be afraid of this. This could kill you. This guy says that guy's an asshole. He says horrible things about her. Those are the things. And of course, you're absolutely right. Underneath all of that, every time you click on something, somebody's getting a buck out of it. But now that I've spoken, and I'm Amy's supposed to talk now, but I'm just going to ask you this, and that is that, on the other hand, you're very lucky because you were successful enough that you can live in a trailer on the beach. What about the rest of us poor suckers who are out here?
I know. As a matter of fact, to that point, Stephen, talk about Haladay. It's Haladay, right?
Yep.
What is it? Where is it? And and will you invite Kevin and I to it?
Oh, you mean our little base camp here in Baja?
Yeah. What is that?
So first of all, I'll answer your question first, is that this whole setup cost me less than $100,000. So I'm actually, and the reason I wanted to do this, part of the reason I wanted to do this was because in Canada, a home is $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no interest in buying a home and then being chained to a mortgage for the next 25 years of my life. I was like, this whole system doesn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make any sense to a lot of young people as well. And so I wanted to see, how do I, as an entrepreneur, I'm like, how do I get out of this game? Because I don't see it making sense. And so when I came down here, I'm like, oh, this math really adds up for me. I can get an entire lifestyle and have real estate and property and have freedom as well, and get it all for under $100,000. But I had to make some serious choices about shifting my income so that I could do it down here. I could work some part of it online, and I could also take advantage of some of the property I have and, rent out some space or create some things that the property could generate money as well, so that I could have the lifestyle that I wanted. So it's been a lot of choices, and I've had to like I make probably a quarter of what I could if I lived still in Canada, and probably a tenth of what I could if I lived in the US.
But you're happier. You're happier.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm 50 years old now. So I wanted to be able to do something that I really, really loved, and that I could contribute to the world before I died. And I mean, people say, oh, people say either you're 50, you're really old, or 50. No, you're not old yet. You say like another 20 or 30 years. And so I was like, yes, if I do, I want to be able to contribute and not be chained by the need to make money every single day. And so I could do the things that I loved and be an artist, be an entrepreneur, and explore things and give the world something that would help the world. And so I made that choice. So I think that's it. I think that's my answer to your question. Then Amy, there was two parts.
Can people van life, do they lead, can they go to your location?
Exactly. Yeah. So we open in a week on November 15th.
Cool.
For people with vans, RVs. We're going to be setting up glamping tents so people can come and rent, a tent and be outdoor, really right beside me, and enjoy the beach and the big acreage that we have, and all of the raw, dusty, dirty desert ocean part of Baja.
How are you telling people about it, Stephen?
So right now it's through the van life community that I've got friends who are doing it, and I've made connections there. And we did a thing last year where we worked with a company that had a bunch of people in the van life community coming down here. And so that's really, and then we have an Instagram page called Florida Baja, which is really shows the property and what we're doing. So I've just started to advertise there. And then we're on apps that people in the van life community will find, like iOverlander is an app where if they're traveling, it'll point out all of the sort of van life or glamping spots that they can go to when they're in Baja. So it's in that way that we're letting people know in a sort of micro way right now. So, and the idea really is to build it out as almost like an alternative community. If people want to come down here in the winter, and get away from North America, they can come down with their vans. They can spend a week, they can spend a few days, they can spend months. And we want to build it. So I'm building an outdoor kitchen this year so that we'll have there's internet. They'll be able to do their work if they work online from there, and really enjoy more of a relaxed, sort of warm atmosphere. It's a little bit less expensive to live here as well. The food is a little bit cheaper. And of course it's, I charge people $10 a day to stay on the property. So it's pretty cheap. But what I'm trying to do is build a community of people so they have an option for this as part of their life. And even if it's temporary, even if it's just for the winters, they get to see, oh, I can do this and I can enjoy, this part of Baja and really get a little bit outside of North America and see what that looks like. Because once you get outside, then you start to see oh, I can tweak my life this way and this way to have a healthier, more balanced life.
Well, you've just mentioned people there, and each week at the end of our podcast, we ask the same question. It sounds to me like you are working to offer people perhaps a different path away from the rat race or what have you that you decided to leave. I've noticed, Bill Gates and the like still haven't decided to leave that lifestyle yet, but that's their decision, not yours. And that's why maybe, I don't know, you're smiling. So I'm very glad it works for you. But we've got to ask you before you go, because you seem to be doing this for other people. Why do you believe in people?
Why do I believe in people? I guess the answer is I believe in humanity. So I have to say my cynical side says I don't necessarily believe in people, but I believe in us as humans. And I believe that we're going to be here for a long time. And I believe that our intentions are good. And I believe that people just stray if they don't have good information and good structures and good outlets. And I think that's, if I can help be part of that good part of it, then that's going to make me feel like my life has meaning. That's the feeling I want. And then I can die and be like, yep, I'm good. And then when I come back, because I believe that I'll come back in some sort of way in this energy sort of realm that we're in, that the next version will be able to do more of that.
Stephen, thank you so much. I'm so glad you got your smile back.
Well, my pleasure. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I see you guys are smiling too, so that makes me feel good.
It works. it is infectious. And of course, we'll see you on the beach. Thank you.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that was kind of inspiring, primarily because I think in a world where we're all searching for success, who isn't? We all are. I still am. It's nice to meet someone with a perspective that says, well, maybe success is a personal thing for you. And if you can find happiness doing something outside of trying to make $1 million every day, then, why not go for it? He seems pretty happy.
Yeah. And, I'm inspired by the options in life, because sometimes we just don't know, we don't know what we don't know. So, Stephen gives a perspective that really allows us to carve another path for ourselves. And that's what I think I'm so inspired by, because it takes a lot of courage actually to follow your own heart. And I learned a lot from the van life, so to speak, and his way of living. And if you've been inspired by Stephen's conversation today with us, then we encourage you to subscribe to Believe in People, because we believe in you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.